Word. Well, Mary was in a situation that many of us find ourselves in these days as we see our population getting older and we see the children having to help the parents as they age. And Mary was taking her mother to the hospital for a procedure, and her mother was, not in a wheelchair, but, almost there. And so Mary knew that she would have to really get her mother as close to the hospital entrance as she could. And it was a stormy, rainy day, which made it even more important to get to that front door so that her mother could not have any trouble getting in, because, we're all a little proud. And, I don't want help unless I absolutely need it. So Mary knew that she needed to give her mother that respect and let her get out of the car and go in by herself. And so all the way toward the hospital, Mary was praying, "Dear Lord, please give us a parking place close to the door of the hospital." And as they got closer and closer, she kept praying and praying, "Dear God, we need this, and we need this." And you know how faithful Mom has been all of her life, and she really deserves your help today and needs it. And so as they drove up, Mary continued to pray, "Please, Lord, give us that parking space." And she drove up, and sure enough, right there in front of the door was a parking space. And Mary said, "Oh, never mind, Lord, I found one." Never mind, I get it. How many times have we been in that situation that we think that we really need God's help, and we maybe even know we need God's help, but then when God's help comes along, or it doesn't come along, if it comes along, we say, "Never mind, God, I took care of it." But if it doesn't come along, we think, "Where is God?" Ever notice that on how we think and how we do things? In this passage from the Gospel of Luke, Jesus is teaching, like I said earlier, about prayer and about who we are. And so he takes two people who are on the edge of society. He takes a Pharisee who is a righteous person, and we have given Pharisees kind of a bad rap in modern day Christianity, thinking if you're a Pharisee, you're bad. And even today, if we think of someone being a hypocrite or too narrow-minded, we call them a Pharisee, as if that's something bad. But a Pharisee was someone who was keeping the church on the right path. A Pharisee was someone who was making sure that the people, the worshipers of the faith, were following the laws and the customs and the traditions in a correct way, because in so doing, you achieved righteousness. And that was the goal. That was the goal of the people of faith, was to achieve righteousness. And so we have a Pharisee who is coming in to pray, and we have a tax collector. Now, if you remember in the scriptures, a tax collector is very seldom mentioned by themselves. It's usually a tax collector and sinner. Tax collector and sinners. They kind of go together like peanut butter and jelly. Tax collectors and sinners. And so tax collectors were on the other edge of society. People knew they were dishonest because that's how they made their living. They were the ones that went around collecting taxes for the government, and the only way they made money to live on was to raise everybody's tax somewhat so that the extra they could keep. And like any of us human beings, they would eventually get to the point, well, if I just charge them a little more and a little more and a little more and a little more, I'll get a little more and a little more, and then I can keep having the things I want. I have gotten used to this style of life, and if I just create this falsehood, or if I, embezzle this much, nobody will miss it. It's a big company, when we start getting more and more. And so the tax collectors weren't the most desirable, honorable people in society. And so Jesus takes these two people at probably opposite ends of acceptance in society of the day, and he talks to them, talks about them coming and standing side by side in prayer. Remember, this is a parable of Jesus. So we're not talking about an actual situation. We're talking about a parable that Jesus is using as a teaching tool, which is what the parables were. They were teaching tools. So Jesus is taking this to people, and the importance of this parable is not to say, well, I wonder if that Pharisee really existed and had a family. You know, I wonder if that Pharisee was really one of the bad ones or one of the good. No, that's not our purpose. And it wasn't to ask, well, was this tax collector just like Zacchaeus? Or did maybe they live in the same town? Or that's not the purpose either, not to check the facts. It's to listen to what the story is telling us. And the telling of the story is that these two people on opposite sides of the tracks came together to pray. And the one person, the Pharisee, stood there and read off his credentials and said, God, I fast every day, I hold the law, I pray this many times a day, I have never done this, and so I come before you, and I am thankful that I am better than so many people in our society. And I'm better than robbers and muggers and adulterers and liars and thieves. And I'm really thankful that I'm even better than this tax collector who dares to come in next to me. And then there's the tax collector who comes in, this dishonest, cheating person that comes in and stands beside this Pharisee and kneels down and is so humbled that he can't even turn his head up to God, to the heavens, and he just says, God, I am such a lowly sinner. Have mercy on me. And that's all he says. And they get up and they leave. Well, we don't know if they went to the bar afterwards or if they went back to another place to preach the holy word, or if we don't know what they did. And again, that's not the important thing. The important thing is what this talks to us, teaches us about God. That's most of the time the truth. Whenever we read a story in the Bible, it's there to teach us something about God and about God's relationship with humankind, and something about humankind and their relationship with God. We don't want to get bogged down in the details and whether it's a true story or not. We listen for what the Holy Scripture is telling us about God as it came to be understood by the people in that day. And so we listen to this story, and it says that Jesus says to the people that he's teaching after they leave that which one went away with more chance at righteousness? Pardon? The tax collector. The tax collector. Not the church guy. It wasn't the church guy, it was the tax collector. I hate that story. You know? It was this lowly tax collector that went away closer to righteousness than the church person. And so God says, the one who humbles himself will be first, and the one who brags on themselves, exalts themselves, will be lowered, humbled. And so we read that and we think it is good to be humble. And I don't want to be proud. I remember talking to friends and how we were raised as children, and one message that we remember our parents teaching us. And I have this friend who says, well, the only thing I remember my mother saying to me was, don't get big-headed. Don't get big-headed. And if I came home and felt good about my grades in school, my mom would just say, well, that's what's expected of you. expected of you. Now, don't go out and get big-headed about this. This guy bought his father for Christmas one year a personalized license plate because his father loves cars and would get a new one every 2 years. Right on the money, a new car every 2 years. And he'd keep it clean and shiny because, you know, a clean car goes faster, his dad would say, you know. And so he bought his dad a personalized license plate for Christmas one year. It had the father's name on it. And his dad opened it up and he went, "Oh, thank you, this is really nice." And he even went out and he put it on his car and he drove it around town for a week and then took it off and put the old tag back on. You know why? That was too hoity-toity. That was too big-headed. That was too proud to have your name on a plate like that. And so this family's message was, don't get big-headed. Don't get big-headed. And to this day, whenever I talk to this guy and I give him a compliment, he denies it. He will say, "Oh, this whole thing, you know, like we say," you say, "Oh, that was a really good speech you gave." Well, I got most of it from a lot of different sources, you know, can never take credit for it. So we have exalted humbleness, and we have taught our people not to be big-headed. Which one of these two people in this prayer situation do you want to identify with? Pharisee? Tax collector? Come on, raise your hand. I know you think one thing or the other. Pharisee? Tax collector? Okay, some of you don't care, but more of you would rather be the tax collector. Why?
Because you told us that was the right answer.
Because by what I've been saying, that is the right answer, right? Correct. And we want to be the one who Jesus blesses and that Jesus likes. And so this is what we do. We go in and be humble. In every situation, we're humble. And we don't want to be the one like the Pharisee. But you know what? We're really both. We're really both of those characters in this story. Because there are times when we are proud and, you know, a little bit snooty, if, you know, that's probably too negative of a word, but we think more of ourselves than we should. And there are times when we are humble and maybe don't think enough of ourselves in the world or in different situations. So again, the story is not you choose this one or this one. It's not so much your sheep or goats. It's that at times you're a sheep and at times you're a goat. Sometimes you're Martha. Sometimes you're Mary. Sometimes you're the Pharisee. Sometimes we're the tax collector. And what we need to do is realize that in both situations, God loves us. And God is with us. Jesus didn't say in this parable that the tax collector went away loved and the Pharisee was not. He didn't say the tax collector went away righteous and the Pharisee didn't go away righteous. He said he went away more this time in this situation. And so it isn't that we have to totally be one or the other. We have to be honest with ourselves and take off the mask of being the righteous one or the unrighteous. We need to be ourselves and be real and realize that in both situations, God loves us. But to be honest with ourselves and say, do I like myself when I'm acting this way? Do I like myself when I'm acting this way? And then put our understanding of who God is and who we are in God's sight and say, if I feel happier being this way, let me think how God feels about that. And then adjust it. If I feel happier and more content and more like me being this way, then let me see what God thinks about that and adjust accordingly. And on both sides, we need to probably do some fine-tuning. But the important thing is, no matter what side we're on, God still loves us and forgives us and wants us to come and live in God's presence the way God calls us to, like God made you. Come and be yourself. Come and be yourself. Hemingway writes the story about a man named Paco. A man named Paco in Madrid, who lived in Madrid, and he and his father had a terrible falling out for some reason. He doesn't go into details. Maybe they fought over something and the son ran away. Maybe the son did something and the father kicked him out. But whatever it was, they had an argument and the son left. And the son went out and wanted to become a matador. And a matador, if you are not trained, is usually a choice to be killed. You're going to go in there without knowing what's going on, and you're going to be killed. And so that's kind of the direction the son was headed. And the father thought, this is a terrible situation that we have parted ways, and he wanted to make it up with his son. But he knew that if he just went around wandering the streets of Madrid, he would never find him. So he put an ad in the local Madrid paper, El Librero. And he put an ad in the paper and said, Paco, meet me at the Hotel Montana at noon on Tuesday. All is forgiven. Papa. And so got closer and closer to Tuesday, and the father was getting more anxious. What if he doesn't come? What if he doesn't show up? Or what if he does come? What if he does show up? And what am I going to do in either situation? And as Tuesday came, the father got more anxious, and he finally made his way to the Hotel Montana at noon. And when he came around the corner to go into the hotel, Paco is such a common name that there were 600 young men named Paco who were waiting for their father to receive the forgiveness they thought they'd never have. 600 young men in the city wanting to come to a place to meet their parent, someone who is very special to them, and to get that parent's forgiveness. I don't know about you, but when I read that, I thought I would have probably gone to that hotel, even if my name wasn't Paco. Because we all have that inner desire to be loved, to be forgiven for whatever it is we've done, and to get that acceptance that all of us want to have. What is it about our lives that we get so desperate to just be accepted for who we are, and that we look out wanting to be accepted and forgiven for whatever we've done by the people who are the most important to us? Whether that's our parents, our grandparents, our children, our nieces, our nephews, our cousins, our neighbors, our school teachers, our house cleaner, the dairy, and on and on and on. We all have this need to be loved and forgiven. There was a young girl and her mother, and they were like this father and son. And they got into an argument, and the young girl was always running away, and her mother would always go out and find her and bring her back at home, and that would last for a while, you know. And one day, the mother got a call from the police, and they had arrested her daughter for drugs, and she was in jail. And the mother went down, paid the bail, got her daughter out of jail, and brought her home. And of course, as soon as they got home, the daughter huffed and puffed and jumped out of the car and ran to her room and shut the door. And her mother thought, what can I say? What am I going to do with this child of mine? Again, I have to go in and go get her, find her. And so the mother finally had a thought, and she went in the other room, put together a present, put it in a box, and wrapped it up. And she went and knocked on the door of her daughter's room, and daughter said, what do you want? And she said, I have something for you. The daughter came over and opened the door a little bit, and the mother held up this beautifully wrapped package, and the daughter grabbed it and let her come on in. And she sat on her bed and started unwrapping the package as the mother was standing in the doorway, not wanting to threaten her by coming in. And the girl sat there and unwrapped the package and found a rock. And she thought, oh great, what is this? I'm going to be stoned, And then she saw that there was a note inside. And she picked up the note and she read it. And as she read it, tears began to come down from her eyes. And the note said, this rock has been tossed around and tumbled through its life for over 100 million years. And that's how long I'm going to keep loving you. And that's how long I'm going to keep loving you. Even when life tosses you around and knocks off some of your sharp corners and edges to form you into a nice round stone. No matter how long life keeps doing that to you, I'm going to love you. I'm going to love you. I'm going to forgive you because you're mine.